Okay, what we're having a look at here is factoring in pairs. So from our last video we learned that if I had something like this, AB plus 2A, we're looking for the highest common factor, and in this case it's A, so I've just got A outside of B plus 2. And if I've got something like 3B plus 6, well again my common factor at that time is 3, so I've got 3 outside of B plus 2. They're just a single common factor that they share. But what if I combine those two expressions and I had something like this, AB plus 2A plus 3B plus 6. Now if we have a look through these, we actually notice that none of them share the same common factor all throughout. So the first couple have got A's, and then, well, these two are even numbers, and so they share a common factor of 2. These ones share a common factor of 3. Then we've of course got these ones that share B's, but you'll notice that nothing's actually been, what I've kind of tried to color code it there, nothing's actually been all colored with the same thing, so they don't share the same common factor all 4 terms. So what we can actually do is kind of use these two things here and try to see if we can't factorize it slightly differently than just using a plain common factor. So our first two terms, I'm just going to draw a little line down the middle here. Our first two terms, well, they share a common factor of A. And then, of course, that's B plus 2. And then my second set of terms, they share a common factor of 3 and B plus 2. And that's literally just what we've done here. That's our first one, and that's our second one. Now, what we actually notice if we look at these two terms, these two now group sets of terms, they actually share a new common factor altogether. And it's that B plus 2. So just like with our previous questions, we go and we write down our common factor first, whatever they share in common, it's B plus 2. And A plus 3 is their corresponding factors, if you'd like. Now, this is what we call grouping things in pairs. We look for, if there's no common factor running all throughout all the terms involved, we can look and say, well, is there a way that I can kind of find common factors for half of the terms and then the other half, and see if once I've factored that, I actually end up with something that looks usable. So what I'm actually going to do here is expand to check this, because I keep saying, I said it in the last video a few times, that we could expand to check this, but I actually want to do it this time because this one is a little bit more conceptually challenging. So let's go and expand it to check. I'm going to do my FOIL method. So I'm going to have B times A, well that's AB. I end up with AB plus B times 3 plus 3B. I'll put these steps that we're taking in here. I've taken that one and now that one. I'm going to do these two next. And what I end up with is 2 times A plus 2A plus 6. Now you might notice that they're in a slightly different order. I've got AB and then 3B and then 2A and then 6 over here, but all 4 terms are still there. Same signs, same coefficients of those terms, coefficient just being the number that multiplies the pronumeral. So we have in fact factored that correctly. Let's have a look at another one. Okay, these are my 4 terms. I've got 6xy plus 2y minus 9x minus 3. Alright, straight away I'm going to look and say that there's still no common factor between all 4 of these terms. So once again, we've got some common factors throughout for different terms, but no common factor that runs through all 4 terms. So we can't just take it and say, write it like this and then have our common factor out the front, because we don't have a common factor that runs all the way through. So that approach from our last video is no good to us here. But we can apply that a couple of times as we did previously, and let's just split it up again. Okay, so these first 2 terms, do they share anything in common? Well, I think that they share a y, definitely, but they also are both even, so they both have 2 as a factor. So 2y outside our brackets, and then, well, what multiplies by 2y to give me 6xy? Well, it's 2 by 3 gives me 6, and then I just need an x as well as a factor. Plus, well, 2y multiplied by what gives me 2y? Well, it's just 1. Okay, well, let's look at what these factors, these terms on the right here now share. They share a 3, but as we said previously, we can actually deal with these negatives as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take out the negative as a factor as well, so minus 3, and then what we end up with is, well, minus 3 times 3x would give me 9x, and minus 3 times positive 1 would give me minus 3. Alrighty, well, again, we've ended up with that scenario where we've got a factor that they now share. So we can write that down first. 3x plus 1. And we write down the other two factors as well, being 2y minus 3. Could expand to check. I'm not going to worry about it, but you could expand to check if you would like. Now, just a little insight into here. This second set of brackets, and how come I knew to take the negative out? Well, you could say that I knew what I was looking for, but I also, if I look here, what I can see is that I've already got this 3x plus 1. If we know there's 4 terms, but there's no common factor throughout them all, I'm thinking that this is probably going to be where I end up, with a pair of brackets. So what I can say is, well, if I've already got 3x plus 1 on the left pair, I'm probably looking for the same factor on the right as well, because I need to have that 3x plus 1. Because if I ended up with something, say, like this, let's say I ended up with 2y outside of 3x plus 1, and let's just say we ended up with minus 5 outside of x plus 2. There is nothing we can do there. Okay, they share no common factors. Yeah, this here is not the same as this here. Those two aren't the same. We could expand that out, and there's really not any like terms that we can deal with either. So that's we can't deal with. We can't go any further with this question. So I'm looking for this factor here to be the same as this factor here, so that I can take it one step further and get it down to that point there. Now, I hope that makes sense. Basically, what we're doing is we're doubling up the process of looking for a common factor. We split our terms up into 2 pairs and find common factors throughout those pairs, and then see if there's more common factors once we've done that process. So I hope you start to see a pattern emerging there.